Today we're going to be going through a list of authors I want to read more from. I am not a person who obsesses over a lot of books. I don't really give star ratings for things, which I explain in a video. And one of the reasons I didn't go in the video for that is because I don't feel super passionate about a lot of books. And those are the books that I would give 5 stars to. So I like a lot of what I read, but I don't absolutely love a lot of what I read. And when I used to rate books 5 stars or give ratings to books, I would go an entire year and read 150 books and have less than 10 books rated 5 stars, which kind of made me have a damper on myself and be like, oh, it's been 3 months since you've read a 5-star book. And it was this weird, situation where it would make me feel like I had to find a 5-star book and then I wouldn't. And then I'm like, well, maybe I'm too picky and blah, blah, blah. And so once I stopped rating things, that kind of all went out the window. But there are books, and it's hard to find what it is, where I read it and I'm like, I love this. I loved this book. I love what the author's doing. And when I find that, I am absolutely terrified to read more by that author. So this is a list of books that I want to read more from. For the most part, I've only read 1 book by them, and I really want to read more by them because I loved what they did. And I'm only including authors on this list that have sophomore books out. So if I love their debut and they don't have more out, I'm not gonna, or if I've read everything by them. So as an example, loved Song of Achilles, read Circe after, was met about Circe, but those are the only 2 books she has out, so I'm not gonna include it. Again, another example, There by Tommy Orange. Loved that book. That's his only book he has out, so he's not on this list. Author number 1, which she is on my TBR this month, so I should be reading the other book. That is Kang. I read The Vegetarian years ago. I loved it, and I have been terrified to try Human Acts since then, but I put it on my TBR for the month, so it is going to happen at this point. I'm doing a series of is this author a one-hit wonder? That's what I'm going to be reading this for. I'm going to determine if Kang is an author for me, and I'm probably going to do more of these authors on this list for this one-hit wonder series. Khaled Hosseini. I read And the Mountains Echoed last year. I was so charmed by this book. It's connected short stories, which I love. I love connected short stories. I'm such a sucker for that when it's done well. I really loved this. I was just completely charmed by all of the characters, and the writing was really nice. I recently acquired 1,000 Splendid Suns, so I am very excited to read this and get more into him and really see if I do like him. I have read The Kite Runner, but I'm not really counting it because I read it as a teenager, and my taste has just changed so much since then that it's like blank slate, we don't count anything I read under the age of 18. Third author, Akwaeke Emezi. I read their debut, Freshwater, pretty close to when it came out. It's not one of those books that stuck with me where after I read it, I thought about it a lot, like some of the other books on this list, but I loved the experience of reading it. It was very dark and gritty, and just the plot was unlike anything I had ever read before, and so I'm very intrigued to read their other books. I'm probably going to start with The Death of Vivek Oji before I go into Pet, because that seems like more of my vibe. Number 4, Lindsey Drager. So I've talked about this book a lot. The Archive of Alternate Endings is experimental. It takes place over time, and it's really more focused on theme and concept over plot. And I was so invested in this. I was like, give me this experiment. I love it. It's short and plotless, and I teared up. I have no idea how she did this to me. And I don't know where it is. I have The Lost Daughter Collective by her, so I'm looking forward to reading that. But again, with all of these, just concerned I'm not going to love it as much, because I feel like, I don't know if other people feel this way, but I can never put my foot on what it is that I love about these books. It's hard to describe. I'm just like infatuated by it. I just want that author to take me on a journey, and I'm just here for it. But then I read other books by an author and I don't feel that way. And it's kind of a bummer. So like I'm lowering my expectations. I don't think that they're going to be this like 5-star miracle experience, but I do like neglect reading and withhold these authors and this potentially great experience from myself because I'm scared to read the next ones, which is why I'm putting together this list. Number 5, Octavia Butler. So this is one where it wasn't as much as I loved it. I did really enjoy it. It was The Parable of the Sower. But I was surprised by how much I liked it. I was so intrigued by the plot. I was really into the characters. It was a book I had put off reading for years, and when I got into it, I was like, why had I put this off again? And I was just really invested where it went. I ended up actually DNFing the second book because I was like, it really didn't need more for me personally. But yeah, I want to read Kindred by her next. I have a decent amount of her books on my Kindle, so I'm looking forward to reading Kindred and just getting into Octavia Butler's backlist. Okay, next one on the list is Sayaka Murata. I read Convenience Store Women a few years ago and loved it. It was such an interesting character study, such an interesting look on society. It centers around like a woman who works in a convenience store, and she's completely satisfied with that. And she's awkward, and like I think you could read her as autistic, but it's never said on the page that she is. But it's not just a look about her as a character. It's also a look of society and society's expectations of people. And she's never bothered that she's not following them, but it's kind of like how society expects her to behave, which is actually the same. The Vegetarian by Hong Kong is like the same thing. It's looking at society and a person's decisions and how those two things are like water and oil, essentially, but a very different vibe to the book. I would say Convenience Store Woman was much more lighthearted. So I'm looking forward to reading another book by her. I think the only one that's translated into English is The Earthlings, which I saw a lot of people dislike, but I have seen people really enjoy it. And yeah, we'll just see how it goes. Okay, next one, Susanna Clarke. I loved Piranesi. I just was so charmed by it. I don't want to say really anything about it because it's one of those books that you really should just read and kind of get the sense of, but it is like a fantasy, like a soft fantasy novel that's short. It's only a few hundred pages. And I'm worried about the other book by Susanna Clarke because that thing is a chunker. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, I don't know, something like that. It is massive. It is like the antithesis of Piranesi. I loved Piranesi because it felt like there was like, it was whimsical, and it felt like there was no words misplaced. Like everything had a meaning, which in a book, I have it somewhere, in a book that's like 800 pages or whatever this book is, that's not probably the case. So I don't expect to feel the same sort of charm about it, but I'm intrigued to see if the author works for me or not. Okay, number 8, Ottessa Moshfegh. So she's actually the only one on this list that I've read more than one book from. I read My Year of Rest and Relaxation and loved it. It is about a woman who quits her job, does nothing for a year except for like a lot of drugs, and is like just a total asshole to everyone around her. Has no sort of care for her friends or anything. The ending, I wasn't a super big fan of. It kind of felt strange. It felt like she didn't know how to end it. But I really loved it. I love unlikable characters like that and like being in their head and seeing how they think and behave. And then I read McGlue, which is a novella by Ottessa Moshfegh, and didn't really like it. So I'm going to read Eileen next and hope that will go well. I think that's the next one I want to read. She does have like a short story collection, but I think Eileen was her debut and it was nominated for a lot of awards. So if people have read her and you think that's like the next place to go, let me know. She came out with like a book last year and I didn't see anything good about it. So we'll see what I think. But she might be like, it might be just like My Year of Rest and Relaxation was just like a one-off. Number 9 is Yoko Ogawa. So I just read The Housekeeper and The Professor last month and was so charmed by it. I loved the writing. I loved the use of language and the characterization of people. I was just so charmed. I don't know, have another word. I was so charmed by this book. And her backlist, Yoko Ogawa's, has a huge array of books on it that are all completely different in genre and scope. So I'm looking forward to diving in, and I'm excited for that because, like, she doesn't, not to say any of these are one-trick ponies, but, like, I'm not going to have an expectation that it's going to have the same feelings because I don't think, like, her book Revenge, I'm not supposed to be charmed by that. So, yeah, looking forward to her. Number 10 is Katherena Vermette. So I just read this book, The Break, and it is like an intergenerational look about this tragic event that happens in these Métis women's lives, and they're all, for the most part, related. It was dark. Read the trigger warning, and there actually is one at the front of the book, so that's cool. I think she just came out with another book, and I believe it's in the same series, and it's from the perspectives of the people that I did dislike them, but I had no empathy for. So I'm very intrigued to see if she can really give me empathy into these characters, because like I could not get over the things that they'd done regardless of what their background was. But the book itself was really well done. I loved the audiobook for it. It can be very hard to take a bunch of different characters and kind of like connect them all in a way where you're not repeating things in the way that feels genuine to the events happening. And it's kind of like Girl, Woman, Other in that it's like this connection of a bunch of women. The connection is more around an event and less like, it's smaller in scope, but still really great, really profound. Very excited to pick up more by her. And then my last one, number 11, because I couldn't do 10, is Anna Freeman. I loved The Fair Fight. I don't want to get into the plot of all of these, but it was like Victorian, which I'm finding I like. It was set in the Victorian period. It wasn't written during the Victorian period. And it takes it takes a few people from different classes in society and like shows their interaction. And then there's like this underground fighting scene, which was just a vibe. And I think she only has 2 books out, and one of them is 5 Days of Fog. So that is the one I'm going to pick up from her next. And I'm hoping that I like it just as much as The Fair Fight. That is it for this video. Those are all the books, those are all the authors that I've read from before, and I'm really excited to read more from. I have another list that I want to do of authors I want to give a second chance to, so maybe I didn't like them, maybe I DNF'd a book, but I still want to read more from, because normally, you know, you make a decision, you're like, I either am going to read more from this author or I'm done, or at least I do. But these ones I'm like, I'm on the fence about. I could read more from you. You could impress me. I see something in that writing that I enjoy. But anyway, that is a video for another day. That is all I got. Let me know if you like any of these authors, recommend any of their other books, and until next time, happy reading.